John Miller had lived in the small suburban house for 3 months before the knocking started. It was late October, and the air had that crisp bite that made the wooden porch creak with every step. It was the week before Halloween, and he'd been unpacking decorations, a half-hearted attempt to seem part of the neighborhood. That first night, the knock came at 9:17 p.m. 3 sharp raps, deliberate, spaced evenly. He checked the window. No car in the driveway, no movement under the porch light. He waited a few seconds, then opened the door. Nothing, just the street, silent and still. He stepped outside, feeling that strange heaviness that comes when you realize how loud quiet can be. When he went back in, he made sure to lock the door, twice. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 3 knocks. This time he called out, "Who's there?" Silence, not even the crickets. He opened the door again. Nothing. John Miller had lived in the little blue house on Ash Grove Lane for almost a year. The rent was cheap, the neighbors polite enough, and he liked the quiet that came once the city lights faded out past the trees. He was new to town, kept mostly to himself, and no one besides his landlord really knew much about him. That was fine by John. He liked the distance. Halloween night had always been harmless fun to him. Every year he bought the big assorted candy bag from the supermarket, filled a bowl, and left it on the porch with a handwritten note, "Take one, please." He didn't dress up, didn't open the door, didn't bother with decorations. It was an easy way to keep the neighborhood kids happy without making conversation. Last year's Halloween started the same way. Windy but dry, the air sharp with fallen leaves and distant bonfire smoke. John finished a late shift at the repair shop, came home around 8, turned on the porch light, and set the candy out. Inside, he microwaved leftovers and half-watched an old horror movie while the doorbell rang on and off. He liked the sound. It meant the world outside was still normal. Sometime near 10, the ringing stopped. The street outside had gone quiet. The movie credits were rolling when he heard it again. One single ring, softer this time, like someone had pressed the button with a gloved finger. He hesitated before going to the window. On the porch stood a small figure in a thin skeleton costume, the kind sold at dollar stores, black fabric with white bones printed on it. The mask was the cheap plastic kind with the wide, hollow eye holes. The kid wasn't moving. John almost smiled. Late straggler, probably. He opened the door halfway and started to tell the kid to take the last few pieces. But the figure tilted its head up, and in a whisper that barely rose over the rustling leaves, it said, "You shouldn't be home alone tonight, John." For a split second, John didn't react. He thought he'd misheard. The voice was small but calm, not playful, not scared, just stating a fact. Then something inside him tightened. He hadn't introduced himself to a single neighbor by first name. The mailbox still had the landlord's name on it. Even his online orders used initials only. He forced a nervous laugh and said something like, "Nice costume." The kid just stood there, then turned and walked down the porch steps without another word. The plastic candy bowl was untouched. John closed the door quickly. He locked it, checked the window, and spent the rest of the night trying to convince himself it was nothing. Maybe the kid's parents knew his name from the lease. Maybe someone overheard at the hardware store. But the silence that followed felt different, too heavy. Every little sound, the settling wood, the hum of the fridge, made him jump. He went to bed around midnight, but didn't sleep much. Each time he drifted off, he half expected the doorbell again. Morning sunlight finally pushed through the curtains. He felt stupid for being uneasy. Coffee, daylight, logic, all the normal things came back. He opened the blinds to let in the light. That's when he saw it. Taped to the inside of the window pane, perfectly centered, was an old photograph. His photograph, maybe 8 years old, maybe more. Him as a child, standing in front of the same blue house he'd grown up in 3 towns over. He didn't remember bringing that photo here. It had been packed away somewhere, he was sure. And as he stared, something else caught his eye. The reflection in the glass, faint behind his own mirrored outline, was another shape. A skull-white face, smooth and plastic, hovering just over his shoulder. John froze where he stood. The reflection lingered only a heartbeat, then it was gone. Just him, the window, and the photograph still fluttering slightly in the faint draft. He told himself it was a trick of light, maybe his own outline catching oddly against the morning glare. But when he peeled the tape away, the paper felt wrong. The edges were damp, the kind of moisture that seeps in from outside, not the dry air of a room. Someone had placed it there from the porch side of the glass. His front door was still locked. The candy bowl still sat outside, yet someone had come close enough, careful enough, to tape a childhood picture to the inside of his window without leaving a single mark. That night, he pushed a chair under the door handle, slept with the lights on. The next morning, the photo was gone. In its place, pressed flat against the glass from the outside, was a small child's handprint. He checked every lock, every latch. Nothing was broken, nothing moved. He didn't go to work. He didn't shower. He just sat by the window, waiting for something else to happen. When night finally came, the bowl was gone too. He stepped outside, the air colder than before. The street was silent, each house dark except for the faint glow of a TV somewhere down the block. When he turned to go back inside, he stopped. On the glass of his front door, written backward from the inside, were 3 words in a shaky, childlike scrawl: trick or treat. And this time, when he looked through the glass, the skull-white mask was waiting for him on the other side. He stumbled backward, tripping over the rug, crashing into the table. The sound of glass shattering filled the room, followed by silence. Slowly, he raised his head toward the door. The mask was gone. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every creak of the house made his heart race. He told himself it was over, that it was some prank. But when he opened his front door to get the mail, there was a small paper bag on the porch. Inside was a single piece of candy, bright red, and a folded note. The note said, "Thank you for playing." He looked up, scanning the empty street. John Miller sits tensely on the couch, rain tapping the windows, the only light from the TV flickering across his pale face. A single doorbell chime echoes through the silent house, soft but sharp in the downpour. John Miller freezes mid-movement, eyes wide, the rain's rhythm slowing in his mind as he listens. He hesitates, walks slowly to the window, and parts the curtain just an inch. Darkness and rain outside, no one there. The candy bowl sits outside, half-filled, collecting rainwater, untouched. John Miller turns from the window. His phone lights up on the counter. A notification from an unknown number. He picks it up. The message is an image. It shows him standing at the window, exactly as he is now. John drops the phone in shock. The screen flickers and goes black. A faint sound echoes from the hallway. 3 soft taps, perfectly spaced. John Miller's breathing quickens. He grabs a flashlight and starts down the hall. John Miller moves slowly down the hallway, the beam of his flashlight trembling across the walls. He reaches the final door, the small laundry room, slightly ajar, a faint chill drifting from inside. The air inside feels colder, heavy with moisture. His breath fogs as he steps in. On the floor lies a single photograph, resting perfectly flat in a small puddle of rainwater. He crouches, shining the flashlight on it. The photo shows him last night, handing candy to the small skeleton figure. But in the window reflection behind him stands something taller, darker, its hands on the frame of the door. He stumbles backward. The light above flickers once, then dies. The hallway plunges into half-darkness, shadows crawling up the walls. A faint shuffle comes from the corner, the sound of wet fabric dragging against linoleum. The beam of his phone light catches a black smear on the wall, thick words dripping down. "You moved, but we never left." John Miller stumbles backward from the wall, his breath shaking, eyes darting around the room. He bolts for the front door, panic overtaking reason. The door flies open, cold rain and streetlight flooding in. The street is empty, slick with rain and silent. He looks down. Faint footprints trail from the porch inside, shaped like small bones pressed into wet carpet. Each print grows darker, deeper, until they stop beside the couch. The police report the next day lists vandalism and trespass. No suspect identified. Neighbors say they saw no trick-or-treaters that night, that the house lights were off all evening. Weeks later, the landlord finds the house empty, except for one thing taped to the window. A photograph of John Miller, asleep in a chair, taken from somewhere inside the house. Behind him, in the reflection, the faint grinning outline of a child's plastic skeleton mask.